It seems bizarre to have to ask the question, does America have a race problem? All the evidence says yes. But not everyone in the US agrees. Surveys consistently show that while most black people believe race is an issue, most white people don't. A divergence of opinion that existed even at the height of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Most white people didn't understand what Martin Luther King was trying to do. So, I'm going on a journey into the mind of white America. It could be a bumpy ride, according to talk radio.
The value in black life, given the illegitimacy rate, out of wedlock rate, is far higher than that of the rest of the society. The reason that people have children before they marry is values, not poverty.
Blacks are stupid. That is correct. They are blinded by anger at whites.
You don't need to say white lives matter, because white people don't walk up to white people, put a gun to their head and blow them away.
I didn't want to talk to any African Americans for this film. Discrimination is obviously a black issue, but when you think about it, it's mainly a white problem. So I set my own color bar.
Bam, 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 bam. And you know it's coming from those areas. And then the next day the news will come on, and sure enough, there was a shooting of some young black man.
I'm part of the problem. Because I don't know how to solve the problem, and so what do? I ignore it.
After a while, the race card has been played so much that it has lost its value.
If you think racism doesn't exist, you're white.
Welcome to white, affluent Milwaukee, home to some of the most expensive real estate in America, all groomed lawns and tended yards. But just a few minutes drive away are pockets of despair. This is Black Milwaukee, home to 70% of African Americans living in the state of Wisconsin. It's poor, run down, undesirable. Professor Marc Levine from the University of Wisconsin gave me a tour and explained how over several decades, mortgage lenders and estate agents steered different races to different parts of the city.
You know, they could sort of deny outright racism by simply saying, well, this is just a hard-boiled economic analysis. We know that African Americans are a greater credit risk and they're not going to, pay back these loans, and so we're not going to make those loans. A study was done about a decade ago by the city to look at exactly that issue, and they found that a white household with income around $25,000 a year had about the same rejection rate for housing loans as a black family with income over $125,000 a year.
And the result of racism in mortgage lending is segregation. And that in turn fuels poverty, poor schools, and so on, as investors turn their backs on black areas. Neighborhoods are left to rot. Meanwhile, in white Milwaukee,
People who don't even live in the neighborhood tend to walk through here because it's pleasant on the eyes and it's a comfortable place to be. It's safe. But on the other hand, just up a couple of blocks, I can, especially through the summer, hear gunshots, bam, 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 bam.
So if I was to ask you then, what is your view of those African Americans living in that area? What would that be based on? Because it's not on personal contact,
right.
Is it?
Honestly, most of it is based on what I see on the news, which unfortunately is a lot of negative.
What I'm saying is I'm part of the problem. Because I don't know how to solve the problem, and so what do? I ignore it.
Do you think a lot of people do that?
Yeah, sure. Well, certainly it's much easier to not know people. If you don't know people, you don't have to accommodate people.
These Americans enjoy a privilege. They can avoid the unpalatable. They live comfortable lives in nice areas because they're white. And the advantages white people enjoy, the privileges they have, are endless. Academics and educators now believe it's the lack of awareness within the white community of these inbuilt advantages that taints white attitudes to race.
So white privilege is growing up in a society not understanding that not everyone has benefits that are unearned as a result of being in white skin. It may mean that because my name is Martha Berry, people are going to see that as a white name and say, let's get her an interview.
Martha works for a non-profit organization that helps clients and businesses overcome racial bias.
It would be great to hear what prompted you to come to this class.
Today, she's reviewing the progress made by 3 former students.
White males actually have a culture. You know, they think white male is the culture, right? There's a story that says fish don't know they swim in water, right? Yeah. So white males don't know they live in a white male-dominated culture. And that was the biggest awakening. And once you knew that, then you could understand that there was institutionalized racism.
It forces you to reflect as a white person on what your role is in working to eliminate racism.
You feel that moment of, I am so clueless because I've just assumed that many people have these same opportunities. And I intellectually knew differently, but you realize for me at that moment how isolated I was in that.
Good morning, Wisconsin. You're listening to News Radio 620 WTMJ. I'm Charlie Sykes.
This is one of the most important men in right-wing talk radio in Wisconsin. Charlie Sykes has a legion of listeners, and most are white, suburban, and Republican. Do you think many of your listeners understand the concept of white privilege? Have they come across that idea?
I think they've heard the term. I don't think they fully grasp it. I'm not sure that I fully grasp it. I actually had a caller the other day who asked me about that, and I asked him to try to define it.
And the caller did a pretty good job.
Well, I've noticed that I have a few African-American friends. One of my good friends, he's been pulled over at least 15 times, and I have never been pulled over before.
Okay, so that you think that is your white privilege? Maybe it's because, I don't know, just the theory here, you don't speed, you don't violate traffic laws. Is that possible?
Do any of those things.
All right. One of the things that we're seeing in American politics is you have a lot of white, working-class, poor people who do not feel that they are privileged because of their race.
So, as far as you're concerned, there is no such thing as white privilege? It doesn't exist?
No, there's white privilege. There's all kinds of privilege. There's a reluctance to go back to the racialization of all of these issues. I mean, we do have an African-American president in this country. After a while, the race card has been played so much that it has lost its value.
The election of Barack Obama distorted the debate on discrimination. For many white people, he marked the end of America's conversation on race. For black people, his success actually marked the beginning. And these are some of those for whom the so-called race card has been played out. White, working-class males flocking to Donald Trump.
We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
Any discussion of white privilege must account for the problems of the poor and working class. But few would argue it's easier to be poor and white in America than poor and black.
White privilege, I just don't see it. You know what you need?
White privilege glasses. Helps you see the world the way we do.
There's a growing awareness of how corrosive white privilege can be. This video caused a storm online and was produced under the direction of Alice Hunt and her team. Put those on. Okay, so what do you see then?
I see confusion and disruption in my normal way of looking at the world. And that's what we intended to do with these glasses. We wanted to encourage people to start thinking about what it might be like to be in someone else's shoes.
My journey into the mind of white America has been an eye-opener. I can now better understand how some people can blithely be unaware of the racism around them, be able to push it to one side, push the chaos to the backs of their minds. But is that an excuse for society not doing anything? No.